want to move now to international affairs, the war on terror. Obviously, we have all been stunned by what happened in India at Mumbai. It is still playing out in that part of the world. You have said that the United States reserves the right to go after terrorists in Pakistan if you have targets of opportunity. Does India now also have that right of hot pursuit?
Well, I'm not going to comment on that. What I'm going to restate is a basic principle. Number one, if a country is attacked, it has the right to defend itself. I think that's universally acknowledged. The second thing is that we need a strategic partnership with all the parties in the region, Pakistan and India and the Afghan government, to stamp out the kind of militant, violent, terrorist extremists that have set up base camps and that are operating in ways that threaten the security of everybody in the international community. And as I've said before, we can't continue to look at Afghanistan in isolation. We have to see it as a part of a regional problem that includes Pakistan, includes India, includes Kashmir, includes Iran. And part of the kind of foreign policy I want to shape is one in which we have tough, direct diplomacy combined with more effective military operations focused on what is the number one threat against U.S. interests and U.S. lives, and that's al-Qaeda and their various affiliates. And we are going to go after them fiercely in the years to come.
President Zardari of Pakistan has said that he expects you to re-examine the American policy of using unmanned missiles for attacks on terrorist camps in Pakistan, and there have been civilian casualties in those attacks as well. Are you re-examining that policy?
Well, what I want to do is to create the kind of effective strategic partnership with Pakistan that allows us in concert to assure that terrorists are not setting up safe havens in some of these border regions between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So far, President Zardari has sent the right signals. He's indicated that he recognizes this is not just a threat to the United States, but it is a threat to Pakistan as well. There was a bombing in Pakistan just yesterday that killed scores of people. And so you're seeing greater and greater terrorist activity inside of Pakistan. I think this democratically elected government understands that threat, and I hope that in the coming months that we're going to be able to establish the kind of close, effective working relationship that makes both countries safer.
That part of the world is such a hot zone. Is it going to be necessary for you to appoint some kind of a special envoy to worry only about South Asia with presidential authority?
Well, my first job is to make sure that my core national security team, Secretary of State designee Hillary Clinton, Jim Jones, who will be my national security advisor, Bob Gates, Susan Rice, my UN representative, that my intelligence folks, when they get appointed, that we come up with a comprehensive strategy. I have enormous confidence in Senator Clinton's ability to rebuild alliances and to send a strong signal that we're going to do business differently and place an emphasis on diplomacy.
Let's talk for a moment about Iraq. It was a principle, it was one of the principles in the organization of your campaign at the beginning. A lot of people voted for you because they thought you would bring the war in Iraq to an end very swiftly. Here is what you had to say on July 3rd of this year about what you would do once you took office.
I intend to end this war. My first day in office, I will bring the Joint Chiefs of Staff in, and I will give them a new mission, and that is to end this war responsibly, deliberately, but decisively.
When does the drawdown of American troops begin, and when does it end in Iraq?
Well, one of my first acts as president, once I'm sworn in, will be to bring in the Joint Chiefs of Staff, to bring in my national security team, and design a plan for a responsible drawdown. You are seeing a convergence. When I began this campaign, there was a lot of controversy about the idea of starting to draw down troops. Now you've seen that this administration sign an agreement with the Iraqi government, both creating a time frame for removing U.S. troops. And so what I want to do is tell our Joint Chiefs, let's do it as quickly as we can do to maintain stability in Iraq, maintain the safety of U.S. troops, to provide a mechanism so that Iraq can start taking more responsibility as a sovereign nation for its own safety and security, ensuring that you don't see any resurgence of terrorism in Iraq that could threaten our interests, but recognizing that the central front on terror, as Bob Gates said, started in Afghanistan and the border regions between Afghanistan and Pakistan. That's where it will end, and that has to be our priority.
Jim Jones, who is your new national security advisor, the man that you want to have in that job, was the Marine Commandant when we first went into Afghanistan. I had a conversation with him at that time, and he said to me, I know how we're going to get into Afghanistan. I don't know how we're going to get out of Afghanistan. What is he telling you today about how we're going to get out of Afghanistan?
Well, I think we're starting to see a consensus that we have to have more effective military action, and that means additional troops, but it also means more effective coordination with our NATO allies. It means that we have to have much more effective diplomacy in the region. We can't solve Afghanistan without solving Pakistan and working more effectively with that country, and we are going to have to make sure that India and Pakistan are normalizing their relationship if we're going to be effective in some of these other areas. And we've got to really ramp up our development approach to Afghanistan. I mean, part of the problem that we've had is the average Afghan farmer hasn't seen any improvement in his life. We haven't seen the kinds of infrastructure improvements. We haven't seen the security improvements. We haven't seen the reduction in narco trafficking. We haven't seen a reliance on rule of law in Afghanistan that would make people feel confident that the central government can, in fact, deliver on its promises. And if we combine effective development, more effective military work, as well as more effective diplomacy, then I think that we can stabilize the situation. Our number one goal has to be to make sure that it cannot be used as a base to launch attacks against the United States, and we've got to get bin Laden, and we've got to get al-Qaeda.
Here's something else that Afghan farmer has never seen, nor have any of his ancestors ever seen this. Foreign powers coming into Afghanistan and being effective and staying very long.
Well, I think that we do have to be mindful of the history of Afghanistan. It is tough territory, and there's a fierce independence in Afghanistan. And if the perception is that we are there simply to impose ourselves in a long-term occupation, that's not going to work in Afghanistan. By the way, that's not going to work in Iraq either. There are very few countries that welcome long-term occupations by foreign powers. But Afghanistan has shown that they are fiercely resistant to that. We're going to have to convince the Afghan people that we're not interested in dictating what happens in Afghanistan. What we are interested in is making sure that Afghanistan cannot be used as a base for launching terrorist attacks. And as long as al-Qaeda and the Taliban, working in concert with al-Qaeda, threaten directly the United States and are engaged in mayhem, then we've got to take action. And that very limited goal of making sure that that doesn't happen, I think, can serve as the basis for effective cooperation with the Afghan people.
Before we leave that part of the world, on Iraq, there's a new phrase that has come into play called residual force. How many troops will stay behind in an Obama administration? Speculation is 35 to 50,000. Is that a fair number?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on the numbers. What I've said is that we are going to maintain a large enough force in the region to assure that our civilian troops, our civilian personnel, and our embassies are protected, to make sure that we can ferret out any remaining terrorist activity in the region in cooperation with the Iraqi government, that we are providing training and logistical support, maintaining the integrity of Iraq as necessary. And one of the things that I'll be doing is evaluating what kind of number is required to meet those very limited goals.